Yo, what's going on YouTube? Jake Cameo here from CoreGaming, and today I have an update video on my Darkest Diabolos, or Diablos, however you say it, deck profile, basically the virus deck, but this one is a tiny bit less virus. I'll let you guys see why, but spoilers, we do keep the virus cards in the side deck and whatnot, but this is just kind of like a very slight variation that you can still have a lot of fun with if you just don't want to play a lot of virus cards. So alright, so very, very similar. Starting off with the monsters, we have 3 Darkest Diabolos. He's the boss monster of the deck, and you definitely want to run 3 of him because you want to see him either in your hand or in your graveyard. So you definitely want him pretty much always. He's the strongest card in the whole deck in my personal opinion. But then we're moving on to the second strongest card probably in the main deck, Dark Armed Dragon. Very easy to get out, and yeah, he's just a really, really good card. And then moving on to Destrudo. Destrudo, the Lost Dragon. He's a tuner monster. He tunes for level 7. If you use his ability, he tunes for level 7. And he's also a 1000, which I'm not sure if I went over in the first video, but he is a 1000, so if you use Crush Card, you can use Crush Card on Destrudo. So he's a tuner, you can use your virus cards on him, and he's a dark monster, so all fantastic qualities in a card for this deck. So then moving on, we have 3 Chronograph Sorcerer. Very good card, easy to get out, easy to use. It's basically a free monster if you use it in your hand, and if you open up with 2 of them, I'm pretty sure, let me just double check here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that if you open up with 2 of these, you can use one to destroy itself to bring out a monster, specifically named monster, and the other one in your hand can be summoned to the field in that case. So that's really good as well. But then we run 3 Arima. Arima is just a really good card. Also, all of these cards work so well together. They're all just really good. Arima is a field spell searcher and draw power, as well as most cards being their effects will tribute something. So that works into effect with Darkest Diabolos with his ability to be special summoned from hand or graveyard if something's tributed. So then we run 3 Lilith. Lilith is of course fantastic for the deck because I'm very certain that yes indeed every single trap that we run is in fact a regular trap. So we can use her ability for any of our trap cards, and she's also very functional with the virus cards themselves as well. And then we have 3 Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, because we don't use too many cards in the extra deck, and there is tons of space in the extra deck. So, and she's also a tuner monster as well, with a 1000 or less attack and a dark monster. So all the things we really want in the deck. Typically our monsters that we can normal summon, we typically want them to have about 1000 attack or less, be able to be normal summoned obviously, and be a dark monster. So that being said, there are a lot of those in the deck. Not necessarily counting this one, Time Gazer Magician for the Chronograph Sorcerer. You sack off your Chronograph Sorcerer in the Pendulum Zone, and it special summons a Time Gazer from the deck. So it's basically a free monster, a free special summon, or free link monster pretty much on the first turn. So that's really good. Plus he's level 3, which a lot of our monsters will end up being, so that he can Exceed Summon into rank 3. So that's really good, and he's a dark monster as well. And then we run 1 Tour Guide, dark monster, 1000 attack, level 3, super good. She can special summon a fiend type monster from the hand or deck, so super good. And then Sangan, level 3, 1000 attack, dark monster, and it can, if it's sent from the field to the grave, you can add a monster with 15 or less attack from your deck to your hand. So that's super good as well. Then, which you'll typically, if you use Sangan, you'll typically use it to search out Tour Guide or something. So either Tour Guide or one of your Winter Cherries. So that's it for the monster lineup. Extremely similar. I don't think I changed anything in the monster lineup as far as the last profile. So yeah, so monsters I don't believe have changed. Alright, so moving on to the spells. Very few things have changed in the spells as well, but we run 3 Lair of Darkness. Obviously it's the most powerful field spell that we could use in this deck, and it's very, very good. Then we run 1 Terraforming, because we already have the Arima for the field spell searches and things like that, and the field spells aren't really that necessary, but it does make your opponents worry when you do have that, because you can use that against them. It is a very good card to use against your opponents, so they will try to get rid of it as soon as they can. So it's also, not only is the card good, it's also more than likely going to be a target for your opponent. So, and because it's not really necessary, it makes the field spell incredibly, incredibly amazing in this deck. So, and then we run 3 Lair of Darkness, obviously the best draw power for the deck. Then we run 2 Card of Demise, the second best draw power for the deck. It's just really good. Typically you'll have like traps or something in your hand where you'll set a bunch of cards and maybe have 1 to no cards in your hand left, so then you'll use Card of Demise and be able to draw a lot of cards. So that's really good. Then moving on, we have 2 Dragon Shrine. We run Dragon Shrine for the Destrudo and the Darkest Diabolos, because we typically want those in the graveyard. Then we run Foolish Burial, 1 Foolish Burial for the exact same reason. And then something that's changed is, instead of the Fang of Critias, I run a Polymerization and a Fusion Sage, because with Polymerization, if you have 2 monsters in your hand, you can use it to, spoilers, special summon Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. And you can use Fusion Sage as bait as well. So if you open up with Fusion Sage, you can activate Fusion Sage and hope that your opponent doesn't see super far in the future or is incredibly worried about this play. Because if you activate Fusion Sage, then they that's bait for their what's her name? Joyous Spring, Ash Blossom. That's bait for their Ash Blossom. So either they're going to Ash Blossom this or let you get your Polymerization off. So, and if you get your Polymerization off and go into Starving Venom, then that can be troublesome, because the only real way to get around Starving Venom at that point is to Borlo Dragon steal it. Otherwise, anything special summoned that they go to summon is going to be destroyed. So it's a very safe and very, I feel like safe is the correct word, just sitting it safe. It's a very safe play. You can activate Fusion Sage, and if they don't use Ash Blossom, then you get a Starving Venom, which can help you out a ton. And if they do use Ash Blossom, then that's one less Ash Blossom you have to worry about, because this isn't the main portion of the deck. The deck still remains as Darkest Diabolos being the main monster that you want to use. So anyway, moving on. The last spell we run is 1 Raigeki for the obvious board wipe. So, now we shall move on to the traps. Now the trap lineup, because we don't run the Fang of Critias, the trap lineup has changed a little bit as well. So, we run 3 Grinning Grave Virus, because Grinning Grave Virus contribute any dark monster. So, it's still very viable with your 1000 attack monsters and every other monster in your deck, as well as your opponent's monsters if they happen to be dark, if you have Lair of Darkness on the field, which makes all of their monsters, even if they already are dark type, which you contribute this monster, or this trap, this trap lets you tribute any monster with 3000 or less attack, which is, I would probably say, just rough estimate, around 98% of the monsters in the game, if not more than that, maybe 99%, are 3000 or less attack. So, that's pretty much any monster is up for tribute or a kaiju type effect, if you will. So, we run 3 Grinning Grave Virus because of that, and plus, it lets you see all the cards that they will draw for 3 turns after this. So even if they don't draw into a monster, they have to reveal that card and see for you to see if it is a monster. And if it's not a monster, then you know what's in their hand. So you have a slight advantage that way as well. So, and then we run 1 Deck Devastation Virus. It's a card that's probably not going to go anywhere in the deck anytime soon. It requires 2000 or more attack for a monster, so pretty much the same, but 2000 or more, or instead of 3000 and less. So just kind of like the opposite effect as far as the monster requirements go. And then we run 1 Eradicator Epidemic Virus because it's instead of monsters, it's your spell and trap card type deal. So that's why this card is limited to 1, because it can be incredibly beneficial for you and not your opponent. And then rounding off the traps, we run 2 Bottomless Trap Hole, because pretty much in just play testing and kind of like going over things in my head and everything, and just looking at all the cards and what's meta, what's not meta, and things like that. If you go to a competitive event, more than likely a huge portion of players are going to run Borload Dragon. And Borload Dragon is one of the most powerful cards out right now, because it is unaffected by monster targeting effects, and it can steal your monsters. So that kind of hinders this deck a slight bit, just a slight bit, because your more powerful monsters would be taken by Borload Dragon and things like that. So basically, this card, or these 2 cards, are your Borload counter. You typically will hopefully be able to tribute Borload, or just banish him when he's summoned. So this is basically Borload counter instead of just regular burning, I suppose. So you want to kind of build your field as securely as possible, and also kind of hurt your opponent as well. This doesn't have to be Borload, obviously. It's when your opponent summons a monster with 15 or more attack. So that's any kind of summon, that's special summon, flip summon, whatever. If it's got 1500 or more attack, then you destroy that monster and banish it. So that's very, very good. Because then they couldn't even Monster Reborn their Borload or anything like that, and it's just super good. So I feel like this is another safe route. It's just a safe kind of meta choices, I suppose. So that's going to be it for the traps. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and do the side deck, because in the first video I actually did not even show you guys the side deck, even though the side deck has changed a small bit. It hasn't changed too much. So we run 2, Chain Disappearance, because this card is actually pretty busted for any cards that your opponent may have that are important to them. This says, when a monster with 1,000 or less attack is summoned, banish that monster or monsters with 1,000 or less attack. Then your opponent banishes all cards with the same name as that card from their hand and deck. So, say, for instance, we'll just use Ash Blossom again. For some reason, your opponent summons Ash Blossom. Maybe they're going to use it as a synchro tuner or something like that. For some reason, your opponent summons Ash Blossom. You activate Chain Disappearance, and every Ash Blossom in their hand and in their deck, and that they just summoned, gets banished. So that's a very, very incredible card. It's definitely situational because the 1,000 or less attack, but it is a very, very good card that I recommend you put in the side deck for this virus build. And then moving on, we have the 3 Mind Crush that we had in the deck previously. Because if I'm being honest, the Crush card, I said Mind Crush, didn't I? The Crush card virus. But if I'm being honest, the Crush card virus is my favorite build, just because it's more fun. But this one seems a tiny bit more competitive, if I'm being honest. So I'm definitely a Yu-Gi-Oh player who enjoys having fun a little bit more so over facing competitive decks. But I do enjoy competitive play as well from time to time. So moving on, we run 3 Full Force Virus because for a time this was the best virus card to use, and it kind of still can be, depending on what you're playing. You tribute 1 dark monster with 2,000 or more defense, and so that could definitely be beneficial as well. And then in the last video, there was someone who was very, very adamant about this card, and I can see where it does benefit and can help out some, but in my experience with the deck, you typically want to use your field spell, the Lair of Darkness, or whatever you may be using in the deck. You typically want to use your field spell kind of as bait, so that your opponent doesn't focus too much on your virus cards or your just your trap cards and back row in general. You kind of want to use your field spell as kind of bait to make them worry. So you'll typically try to bait your opponent to destroy your field spell, or just kind of focus more onto your field spell. So I don't really see too much play in this. I have tested it, and I can see how it can be beneficial, definitely because of its special summon ability, Malefic Stardust Dragon. So it can work well with a lot of the virus cards, pretty much all the virus cards other than Crush card. It can be very beneficial in that sense, but if there are no field spells, then this card is instantly destroyed. So that can pretty much kind of hinder you in times. So I personally prefer Dark Arm Dragon, but I can see how this can be beneficial at times if your opponent is not focusing field spells or runs a lot of field spells themselves. I can see how this card could be beneficial, so that we side deck it. So then we also side deck Polymerization, because you might want to run another Polymerization over Fusion Sage or something like that. So we side deck one more Polymerization, and then we side deck the 2 Fang of Critias for my personal favorite build, obviously. And then because we side deck the 2 Fang of Critias, we also side deck the 2 Doom Virus Dragon, which are super powerful and super handy. But then that kind of leaves us with kind of just an empty spot. I really don't know what I would put there. Maybe a random Ash Blossom or something. Yeah, because you really don't summon enough to like warrant side decking a Borload or something like that. And yeah, so yeah, we kind of have just like an empty spot there that you guys can kind of fiddle around and put whatever you'd like there. But in my opinion, this is kind of like the side deck of choice for this build. Alright, so moving on to the side deck. Obviously we have the Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. And then we have the Stardust Dragon for the Malefic Stardust Dragon, but also because reading further into the card, it says, during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated that would destroy a card on the field, you can tribute, very important, Darkest Diabolos, tribute this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. So it's this card is actually very, very handy, because if you manage to summon it, or if you just you don't have to summon it, but if you want to summon it and you get it on the field, it can negate problematic cards such as Raigeki or anything like that that can board wipe your Darkest Diabolos, because Darkest Diabolos doesn't get targeted. So the only way to really get around it is things like Torrential Tribute, Dark Hole, Raigeki, things like that, board wipey type cards, unless you're just going to steal him with Borlo Dragon's effect, I think. So unless Borlo's Dragon's effect targets, then I've just been speaking in circles and not really made any sense this whole video. But anyway, very good card because it tributes itself so that you can get Darkest Diabolos on the field, and at the end of the turn you get this card back. So not only does it tribute itself, giving you a monster, but it also summons itself back at the end of the turn so that you have two powerful monsters. So Stardust Dragon, definitely very viable in the deck. And then we run one Phantom Knights of Breaksword. The side deck really the extra deck really hasn't changed too much from the first video. So we run Breaksword because he's obviously very good, and we run a lot of level 3s. And then we run one Xenophon, the Sky Prison, because it can sort of hinder Sky Strikers because it will stop effects from the graveyard, and it kind of hinders the mirror match as well, because it would stop effects if you're facing a Darkness Diabolos deck and they have one in the graveyard. It would stop their effects from the graveyard as well. So kind of mirror match and sort of Sky Strikers as well. So it can just stop abilities from the graveyard, which is super good. Then we run one Underclock Taker and one Decode Talker. Decode Talker, I'm pretty sure I went over in the previous video, but his ability requires Tribute as well, so very, very good. And then we can also summon, but it's mainly a Cherry Blossom target, but we can also summon Heavy Metal Foes Electromite. If we can get focused there we go. Heavy Metal Foes Electromite, which can be draw power, or just raw 1800 power, whatever you'd like. We can summon it, but it's more than likely just going to be a target for our Cherry Blossoms. Then we run one Spiral Double Helix, because spirals are basically back. One Nightmare Mermaid, because if we get Ibleed, if we get Ibleed, that would kind of suck, so we kind of run that. And then we run a Nightmare Goblin and a Nightmare Phoenix as well, because I feel like those are kind of like the more popular cards right now for the Nightmare cards. Then we run a Totally Awesome, and then these next three are kind of proxies because I have cards in other decks and stuff like that. But then we would run the Isolde, the Warrior, the Link monster they use in Goki decks. We would run that one. Then we would run we could run that, or we could run one of the Sky Striker cards. And then we would run Borlo Dragon, which I don't own, which sucks. So that one's probably going to be proxy for a little while. And then this one's also a proxy, but it's just a fusion monster so that I can remember that this would be ABC Dragon Buster. So that would be the extra deck, and then we could just kind of have our little tokens here. But yeah, so definitely that's going to be the profile. That's going to be the deck profile. So alright, so that's going to be the profile, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. I kind of built this deck profile kind of sort of as a response to a Darkness Diabolos sort of budget battle, I guess. On Team APS, they had a guest come in, and I've seen this guy's videos before, but I can't remember his name for some reason. And I don't even fully know why it triggered me, but it definitely triggered me to the point where I just wanted to build this to the best of my abilities and stuff like that, and make it as competitively viable and as cheap as possible as well. But I definitely got triggered because I was like so excited in the beginning of the video, because the premise of the video was you go out and spend $30 on a Darkness Diabolos deck, and then you go to your local tournament and see how well you can do. Well, I was incredibly excited and hyped, because I was like, okay, awesome, I know what this deck can do, so I'm super excited and stuff like that. Even just buying the starter decks, this deck is very, very good if you just try. And it's just, watching his duel footage, it just didn't seem like he was trying to me. I don't know, maybe he was, and I'm just being like super nitpicky, kind of douchebag, I don't know. But I definitely don't mean to offend the guy. I definitely would love for you guys to go support him, and Team APS especially, because I'm a big fan of Team APS. So definitely go support those guys. But it's just that one video, man. That one video just triggered me for some reason. So I just wanted to make this kind of update video for the deck for you guys, and get this out there. So if you guys like this video, hit that like button down below. If you guys are part of, or if you guys want to join the Ojamas, then you definitely can. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button, and you will join the Ojamas. We are a mighty big family, and we're growing every day. And leave your comments and criticisms down below. So thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are awesome, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.